Right now, we want you to take a moment to meet an Eastern Iowa man whose roots run deep and have guided his journey far beyond our borders in service to his country. He has reached the level of general and is now in one of the highest posts at the Iowa National Guard. His career spans 5 deployments overseas, though nearly all of them were never supposed to happen. Born and raised in Strawberry Point, married to his high school sweetheart, his service has taken him to places most Iowans will never see. General Ben Corell is tonight's Person to Person.
My first deployment was in 2000. I took a company security force to Saudi Arabia. We provided Patriot missile battery security.
And that was supposed to be it. Ben Corell was ready to call it a career in the Guard.
I figured I would do my 20 years and get out with that one deployment, and then after 9/11 things changed.
Because of 9/11, the National Guard was called to serve in a much bigger way than before, and Corell chose to stay and do his part.
2003, I took command of the 1st 133rd Infantry Battalion located in Waterloo, Iowa.
His first wartime deployment sent him to the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt, sheltered somewhat from the intense fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. But his next deployment would be much different.
Assigned unit members must understand that the decision to deploy has occurred. As a result, the unit will be called to active duty.
In 2005, I got notified that the battalion had been selected to join up with a brigade combat team out of Minnesota and prepare to deploy to Iraq.
It was a massive, historic call-up, one followed from start to finish by 60 minutes. Then Iowa Governor Tom Vilsack attended every send-off across the state, traveling by helicopter with a message for the troops.
You need to know and must know that as you leave here, the thoughts, the prayers, and the hopes of the entire Iowa community are with you.
Corell prepared to leave his wife Beth again. On his last deployment, all 3 of their sons, each members of the Guard, went with him, leaving her to handle the bills and obligations for the 4 of them. So this time he took one son, his youngest, Tyler, who volunteered. As a parent, as a commander, how do you go into harm's way with your son?
Those soldiers that are under my command, are under my care, are my responsibility. They all have moms and dads. They all have family and loved ones back home. And so even though that's my son, I've never treated my sons any differently than I've looked at the other soldiers that are part of my command.
What Corell didn't know was that the tour would not end as expected.
We'll be deployed, extended up to 125 days, starting April. So that takes us August time frame.
They're not active Army. What about the families? The countdown for Daddy coming home. Now we have nothing. Nothing at all.
Worried mothers and wives grew weary from waiting. Finally, after 2 years away, the unit returned to Iowa. But the homecoming was bittersweet. 2 Guard members killed in action are among the 4 General Corell has lost under his command. Losing a soldier, how does that affect you personally?
When you lose a soldier, it's like losing a member of your family. And that stays with you. And you know, I've got the dog tags of the soldiers that have fallen under my command. They're sitting on the table over there. You have to come back and look those family members in the eye and question yourself and ask yourself, did I do everything that I could? And in some cases, you do everything you could have. They did everything right, but it's the way it turns out, and that's what war's like.
War did earn Corell a new title, Brigadier General. It was then that he served with NATO forces in Romania. It was also then that Governor Kim Reynolds called Corell home to become a Deputy Adjutant General of the Iowa National Guard. Now settling into his office at the Johnston headquarters, he's surrounded by reminders of his journey, each physical memory with a story all its own.
Oh gosh, it's heavy.
3 of them on November 3rd, 2006 that exploded underneath my Humvee. And this one was
How did you survive?
the biggest.
Just under the car?
Their sight picture was off,
Oh.
so it exploded in the back part of the vehicle.
There is a cabinet holding a vast collection of military challenge coins, something treasured among all branches of the service. From his very first,
I was a private, and I dug the greatest foxhole that he'd seen in a long time.
to the very prestigious. Donald Rumsfeld, of
Right,
course, Secretary
right,
of Defense.
Right, so when I was in Iraq, I met the Secretary of Defense, and he said, Corell, you're doing good work. Here's one of my coins.
Corell says he appreciates the honors, promotions, and souvenirs, but his most treasured memory is not a possession. It's the privilege, he says, of having served his country with his sons by his side.
Well, I'm not sure it's fully absorbed in me. Maybe someday when I retire and I'm sitting in my boat fishing, I can think back on it and be pretty proud.
The general's sons, Wade, Travis, and Tyler, all still serve in the National Guard and are based out of Waterloo. He and Beth have built their retirement home near Harper's Ferry, but he's nowhere being finished yet. He's hoping one day to command an entire division before hitting the lake. From traveling the world to flying high above it, we talked to Iowa native Peggy Whitson, the record-setting astronaut, as she shares her experiences with others in her home state of Iowa when the Fox 28 News at 9 returns.